Thank you. So we're live.
Hello, Justin.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission regular business meeting, Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. The first order of business is approval of 3 sets of minutes, and I believe that Commissioner Lott has a correction.
Yes. Yes. The May 1st, I believe a special meeting, there was a motion made, but the minutes omitted the motion. So this was to do with the ADA parking. And the motion by Commissioner Adams was, I move to approve APR staff to procure engineering documents, identify a funding source, and build an ADA parking area with minimum of 5 spaces, raised crosswalk, and ramp access to the Japanese garden. And I move to approve those minutes with that correction.
Does anybody have corrections to the other minutes? You want to make a motion for all 3 then?
Okay, I'll add the other 2 meeting minutes, which I don't have the dates in front of it. Just hang on. Wrong one. Thank you. Okay, the other minutes are study session June 5th and business meeting June 12th. I move for approval of the 3 meeting minutes with the correction for the May 1st that I already read.
Commissioner Seffinger seconded it. I will just ask for a hand vote on this one. All in favor? 4-0. We have 4 councilors here tonight, commissioners rather. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? I have none. Okay, none there. Public forum, I haven't seen any slips. No? Then we're on to the consent agenda. So I'm going to ask for unanimous consent on these. These are 3 advisory committee sets of minutes, and we acknowledge those by approving the consent agenda. So without objection, the consent agenda is approved unanimously, which takes us all the way to the director's report.
Thank you. For the record, Rocky Houston.
Who now has a theme
That's
song.
your new theme music, Rocky. We'll follow you every place.
Good timing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. One of our wonderful assets, just up over there, as everyone knows. So, for the record, Rocky Houston, Director, Ashland Parks and Recreation Department. I'm just going to jump right in and do a review. So initially on the administration side, we hired Forrest Rhoda. Did I get the last name right? Rhoda? Thank you. For the Parks East team, he's doing our facilities janitorial work, adding to that team, which has been a great boon to assist in meeting our operational needs. He started just about a week after me, and so he's been here for almost 2 months now. Brian Weaver was hired for the golf course manager. He starts next Monday, so we're excited to get him on board and start working on a business plan and all the elements there for the golf course. And then we are so close to having the recruitment open for our environmental education program manager. So that was formerly our nature center manager. We're sort of looking at reprogramming that to be a little broader in focus, to kind of be comprehensive in all the environmental education elements that are occurring in our property, instead of being a sort of one center focus. So they'll still be housed at the nature center and be a lot of programming there, but as the educational needs continue to change, we want to be productive with that as well. So I've been going through my onboarding, still in the first term of my director's school, as I like to call it, and learning all of the city's business and the department's practices. I have visited, and some of those visits are really short, like there's the trailhead. I didn't walk the whole trail on some of those properties. 33 of our properties that are in our portfolio. I've met with all staff, and I've been holding a one-on-one meeting with every staff member individually. We had 2 today, which is just another way for me to continue to understand the needs and the reasons why we have such a great team and why they're working here with us. Financially, we are acquiring a Kubota SVL 97-H2FC. It's just a fancy way of saying it's a skid steer that's going to replace an existing model we acquired in 2016 it's not robust enough to do the work, and we've had about $14,000 in repairs in the last 2 years. This will be coming out of our existing budget for operation and maintenance, I believe. We also are looking at some other options with foundation dollars and such. So we're reviewing that right now, but it'll be within our existing budget limitation. The ice rink, we are still waiting for the new chiller on a delivery date for that. We've been checking on that, as well as the cover that we have, the canvas, is that the right term? Canvas cover is end of its useful life, and so we're looking to replace that so that we can continue to operate that. And from my understanding is when we do have a cover on it, it increases the usability of that facility given our weather conditions, and it's just better for recreational opportunity. That's all part of our $300,000 Lithia Park budget that we have in our existing budget. We've closed out our fiscal year 24, month 13 they call it, and closed out. We are under budget, and we're looking at some of those funds that are still there and how to assess that for our fiscal year 25 programs. So that Kubota is potentially one of those items that we're looking at.
Before you go on, can the Kubota be repurposed in the department or somewhere else in the city for lighter work?
We are looking at that, so that is a consideration. So we're having staff review the existing unit. If not, we would be looking to surplus it and use those funds for our other operational equipment needs. We were also looking at whether or not it'd be a trade-in option as well to lower that cost. We are utilizing an existing state contract, so that's a 25% reduction off of the price. So there is some savings there that I'm grateful for. On to recreation. So we are having all right, vowels and consonants together. Let's try this, see if I can get it right. Otsukimi Moon Gazing Festival. And that's going to be this Sunday on the 15th from 7 to 8:30 at the Japanese Garden. That's going to be it's a festival honoring the, I think it's the autumn moon. I was going to call it the harvest moon. And there's going to be a traditional tea ceremony or tea there from Dobra tea that's being donated. So please I'm inviting everyone to come down and enjoy it. So my oldest daughter is actually going to go to Japan for 2 weeks, so I'm going to, might as well get her started with the culture now. So she's actually been learning Japanese with those little apps. It's amazing, how much smarter she is than I, that's for sure. Another event that we've got is the David's Chair. We've finally got our contracts all kind of lined up, and we'll be getting those all signed up. We've scheduled a trial, sort of a element, sort of a launching ceremony, we'll call it, where anyone can come out and try out the chair on September 18th from 11 to 3. That's going to be at the Lithia Cabin. We're going to be housing it right next door to it, and that is in alignment with sort of our proposed dedicated pathway or alignment that we're suggesting people go on. And then on the 23rd, we will launch the program and start taking reservations, and they'll be able to be made at davidschair.org. Rachel, is there anything else to add on that?
No, I think you got it. It's just a chance. The chair itself is going to be stationed at the cabin. And for that event, folks can just come and take a look at it, sit in it, try it out. Hopefully, by having that big window of time, cars can come through and drop people off who want to try it out. So hopefully everyone will get a chance to come by and take a look.
Thank you. As you all know, this is our second David's Chair. We also have one at the golf course for assisting with that and improving accessibility options for accessing our properties. The next event through volunteers and special events is our Rock the Knoll on a new night, the 19th, from 6 to 9 p.m. It's a great sponsorship by Blackstone Audio where the Brothers Reed and an opening act will be there. So everyone knows there's going to be 2 lines for any beverages. So there's going to be a prepaid line, and then you'll actually go out with your little coupon to get any beverages that you may want. So I'm just encouraging everyone who does want to do that to might as well not stand in 2 lines twice. So just to take care of it the first time. You don't have to use all the drink tickets. You just have to acquire them, right? But anyways, this is something that we used to do prior to COVID, and it's a great partnership, and looking forward to seeing that we have great weather, cool autumn crispness that's dry. That's what we're hoping for on Thursday. And Rachel, you have...
And I will just say that this is not something that we would be able to do without Blackstone Audio sponsoring the band. So the sponsorship with Blackstone is very important.
Yes, indeed. In the environmental education at the Nature Center and Community Gardens, there's ongoing black area removal with volunteers. We've had we'll call it a test plot over the last few years where we continue to go in with volunteers and remove the same area. And they seem to love enjoying that work. We're continuing to look at ways to expand that little sort of World War I trench warfare, extend that line a little bit farther. But it is a lot of work to remove blackberries. We had some ADA parking sites at the Nature Center refreshed with new paint, so you can actually see it now. So now when you do drive into the parking lot there, it's very aware for all users where those are at. Service learning, so we're scheduling for the fall, including a week of programs with Salmon Watch partners. An estimated 2,000 kids will learn about stream health and wildlife habitat with outdoor, hands-on lessons and associated community service in the North Mountain Park there.
Director Houston, that's 200 kids, not 2,000. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking, the whole county's coming, just the third graders. 200 kids, thanks for catching that. And the raspberry plots are being replaced, so those are I believe at Ashland Creek Park. And so there's going to be 4 new 7x7 plots available for rental in February of 2025. In the Oak Knoll Golf Course, we had over 1,500 rounds of golf played in August and 873 buckets of range balls sold. And we went out, and because of the anticipated reduction of TID irrigation and cord, and did that sort of rehab a little earlier than maybe we should, but to ensure that we still could have water on those after we did that work. So continue to try to make sure it's playable and exciting for the golf community. The senior services, we're a distribution site for N95 masks. The city had received a grant, I believe it was, to get lots and lots of masks to be distributed throughout the county. And so with the Ashland Fire and Human Resources, we now have, I believe we still have plenty there if anyone wants to go by the senior center and pick up some more, but that we got those out available for our community members. We had an ice cream social, and some of you were there. It was a beautiful day. And we had over 100 community members attending the event. We had the Ashland Brass Band there as well. And there was even some dancing and a good time for all. It was a nice afternoon. And then we attended the Ollie open house, senior services, and I believe our volunteer coordinator was there promoting our programs and answering questions from attendees of that. Operations, the West team, we had a large 4-inch mainline leak in the middle of Windward Way that we fixed. Sort of just was that weak spot in the middle of a joint in the middle of the road, and so that's been fixed and now repaved, and it's like we never did anything there. Irrigation, we have until Monday, and then TID is being turned off. So that little bit of coldness that we got and rain in August really helped make everything look good. And now with this, we're hopefully continue to have a small water bill as we transition into the fall. And at Lithia Park, we replaced the decking and railing on the bridge that went over to the old shop. So that was a great maintenance project to extend the useful life of that asset. On our east team, we put in a new electrical outlet at the senior center. We have freezers there. Of course, you guys know we have a partnership with the, I'm going to call it the Food Alliance, but that's the wrong term. Food and Friends, or Food Friends, to help accommodate more freezer space there. Before, there was sort of just an extension cord that was sort of a tripping hazard and not to code, so we got that better. We've got a janitorial team that I referenced earlier. It's full 7 days a week. We've got 3 members, I believe, on that team, 2 permanent and 1 seasonal. And so they're now able to do interior buildings as well as our standard restroom and garbage work. And they're out there right now working. They work sort of a swing shift. East Parks, the Hunters Little League fields have been aerated and the North Mountain soccer fields are being rehabilitated. We've completed field 2 and now we're working on field 1, I believe is for Outer Parks and our Trails team. We installed a new sign, the kiosk at Orson Todd Woods. So it's a great partnership with Southern Oregon Land Conservancy. Outer Parks, we've been doing a lot of preventive maintenance projects all over, so sort of our special project team as well. So they've been just about everywhere doing stuff. Right now they're working on removing the tripping hazard and risk of the old concrete pathway around the upper duck pond and replacing that with DG, or decomposed granite, to ensure that it's an accessible access way and improve those potential risks for it. And so they're about halfway done with that just this week. And the boulevards, graffiti as always. We got an amazing volunteer group, helps and supplement our staff to get out there and take care of a lot of the tagging that occurs and stickers and other things. And we're also working with Public Works on improvements to South Ashland Boulevard. So there's some of those island refuge that we get a lot of complaints about. And the one that we get a lot of complaints about, we actually don't manage. It's not a city asset, it's an ODOT asset. And so again, we're continuing to look at ways to reduce our workload and still make sure that we have a beautiful entrance into the community. From the planning, we've got the East Main annexation first hearing here on the 17th for the annexation of East Main from the county into the city. And then that'll be the final reading and decision will be on October 1st for that here in these chambers. Our CIP inventory, or capital improvement plan inventory, we're developing our list for the new 25 to, actually that should be 26 to 30 capital improvement plan. So we'll have a robust list, we hope, when we come to you guys in a few months. And then the projects at Lithia Cabin Annex, we now have, Nancy now has an office. So we added a wall and put in a window and a door, which we used to have there before, I guess, and then we had some changing and staffing needs. So if any of you have been in there, if we all have our doors open and stuff, sound carries quite, so it's helpful, mainly for Nancy than it is for the rest of us. And then looking at our calendar moving forward, just some real highlights. You know, we've got junior fall tennis starting in the first week. We've got the Moon Festival, Davis Chair, and the Rock and Roll that we talked about already. Then we have a high school cross country meet at Oak Knoll the third week, as well as the Mountain Challenge that same week. And then moving into the first week of October, we've got the Ashland Pride event and parade that starts downtown and ends there in Lithia Park. And so with that, I'll entertain any questions before we move forward.
One question I would have, I'm gonna have to put it on. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. With regard to the change in position at North Mountain Park, is there going to be any outreach in terms of the North Mountain Park in years past had programs with school students as well as people from out of the area that were coming to the plays, and there were some programs there to increase use with that population as well. Do you see any of that happening?
That's a good question, Commissioner Seffinger, and I'll turn it over to Rachel, Deputy Director Dials, that is, to answer that question completely.
Sure. So the plan is to rehire that position and not only reach back out to the schools on potential partnerships for environmental education, but to also look into the community and see what other partnerships can be created through some of our current partners, like maybe Southern Oregon Land Conservancy, Salmon Watch. So we want people to be able to not only use that site, but potentially use our other park sites. And so coordinating all of that. So that's the plan at this point.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that. And one other quick question, with regard to the sidewalk replacement on the duck pond, is that what you were saying is going to be gravel now?
It's decomposed granite, where we still have an accessible hard surface. Long-term plans, whether we're going to replace that or not, we're still looking at in regards to the potential impacts of the trees around there, and that's sort of that balancing act that we're trying to look at long-term. What we want to do is remove that risk today and make it as enjoyable as possible, especially with the changing light conditions. Some of those slips, as you know, are getting to be pretty big from that root heaval. The other concern we had is that the cobble or the exposed aggregate that we have there, a lot of those are a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, so that alone will start to become an accessibility issue from our standards. So we decided to kind of remove that risk, put something in there that wasn't going to limit access, and then look to see if we needed to move forward to a concrete replacement.
Thank you. As follow-up to the last meeting, I just wanted to say quickly that I really appreciate the work you've done with assessment and looking at the base of what we really need. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just have two brief comments on your presentation. Don't worry, they won't be bad. One is you talked about the TID turning off here in the near future. One is just a reminder to all of us, or a reminder to the public, that we are aware of that we are lucky that we got so much water this year. And we don't pretend that that will necessarily be the norm. It was easy to forget in our hot July how pleasant and mild June was, how wet the spring was. And of course, we still need to work on solutions for water in the golf course. The second piece I wanted to bring up was just another kudos. You mentioned trails. We've had a couple of trees down in the last month that literally disappeared faster than I could make my fingers type an email. So kudos to Jason Minica and his team. I know they like running those chainsaws because they're getting up there fast. And they're doing a really nice job with those removals too. Really impressed.
Good.
I was going to wait till the items from commissioners, but since it seems like we're kind of doing it during the director's report, I'll add on. This is something that happened before you arrived. It was at the May 1st meeting. There was questions about the chiller, about cost, timeline, energy efficiency, and staff said that that information would be brought back to commissioners. So I'm hoping that will be soon.
Okay.
The other, just a little thing, but also in the minutes from that meeting, it talked about how there was a bubbler in the Japanese garden pool, and how after it was initially going to be on 24/7, but then after that initial time, which has now gone by, that it would only be on at night. And I was there the other day, middle of the day, and it was on. And I'm just wondering, is this totally dependent on humans remembering, or is there a timer? Or if there isn't a timer, maybe that would be a suggestion.
Commissioner Lant, let me review that with it. I know that there was some maintenance of the water elements, and I don't know if that contributed to the bubbler being on longer than usual. So that'd be my first question, whether or not there is that timer. I will follow up with you and the commission in regards to that, as well as the energy efficiency and data on that chiller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very informative as usual now. On to business. Item 7. First item under 7 is APRC policy on committees, and that's referring to advisory committees and management advisory committees, draft ordinance. So this is for the director to introduce.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Rocky Houston, Director. The background on this is that City Council is reviewing, or will be reviewing and adopting a city ordinance for advisory committees and commissions. If that is adopted, the current policies that we have for the APRC will need to be updated to reflect those changes, as well as I believe, Nancy, we have a copy of that draft ordinance in front of everyone, so you have an opportunity tonight or in the near future to provide feedback to staff or to the legal team as we move forward for that. And
Yeah, I just interrupt briefly here. We don't want this tonight because we haven't read it, and so it would take too much time to try to get through it. So I'm going to pass it out to the commissioners, and then they can get their teeth into it on their own time for next time we discuss it. And I was speaking with Assistant Attorney Carmel Zoran earlier before the meeting started. This is an early draft. There are already a lot of changes suggestions coming in from the counselors to the legal team. So it's a start.
right.
And it was going to be, I don't know if it wasn't a first reading, but it was going to be discussed this month, but it's been pushed out, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was on for this coming September 17th agenda. We've had a lot of really great feedback. And so, anyway, we're going to work with that feedback so it it's taken off the September 17th agenda, which also gives the commission some more time to give us feedback as well.
Thank you.
And the intent tonight was to bring it forward to where you're aware of this change, as well as just to continue to think about our workload as we move forward. If this ordinance is adopted in the form that it is, the changes to our policy and the bylaws for those committees we have potentially will need to take place.
So I want to kind of ask a clarifying question or just some comments here, what we're going to try to do with this tonight. If you look at the second item in the background paragraph in the agenda item memo, it says, and I'm assuming you've compared this document we have, which is our adopted policy from last November, with whatever the city's doing, and so far you're saying that the core changes would be that commissioners and councilors would not be allowed to vote, nor would they be eligible to be an officer for the advisory committee. That's a major difference and possible change.
Correct.
Okay. And then the other thing I noticed, so we'll focus on that and see if people, my colleague commissioners here, have anything to say about that change, which is a big change for us because we are accustomed to voting and taking part in the process on these advisory committees. So we can talk about that in a second. The other thing is item F here in our policy discusses appointment and the terms, and for the standing committees, which for us are the Recreation Division Advisory Committee, the Senior Advisory Committee, and the Trails Advisory Committee, which we are in the process of creating, will need to be, so those have to be in sync. So there's whatever's in the city guidance, and again, Assistant City Attorney Ron indicated to me that that's mostly acting City Attorney McGarry is working on that, so she's not clear what those changes will be. So there will be, but that's going to be a big change in here because we want that in alignment. Probably, at least we want to. In general, we're trying to run our department the same way that other departments are run in the city. Okay, so I just noticed that as I just went in here, I said, well, I had forgotten this, so even though I voted to approve it. And the other thing is we're talking about 9 voting members because we still have the language in here, and this is in A, B, and C of item 3, because we still have commissioners voting, we have councilors voting, that sort of thing. So there'll be some major updates that'll just flow, I think, from the final version of this. But tonight, I thought it would be useful to spend this time hearing from the commissioners about whether there's a problem with not voting on these committees, where commissioner liaisons will no longer be voting or serve as officers. That would be the direction the city seems to be going. Am I right? Okay. So anybody want to speak to that? You got your light on, both of you.
Oh,
okay, we'll
I'm
start
sorry.
with Commissioner Adams.
The first thing, and I mentioned this last week at our study session, is just a reminder that though we are creating bylaws for the Trails Advisory Committee, there have been a number of people dedicating a lot of time to this work over more years than I've been a commissioner. So I want to acknowledge those people, also acknowledge that this committee has already been doing, the subcommittee has already been doing work. And that brings me a little bit to my concern. You know, I have people from the subcommittee as the chair writing to me and go, or the committee as the chair writing to me and going, when do we get to meet and get back to work? And so I'm sort of waiting for an answer to that. I was a little confused looking at the agenda packet, and maybe it could just be clarified for me. Last week at our work group meeting, we were presented both with a policy and with bylaws. The packet today includes policy, including an old, I believe what you're referring to where it says 9 is the previous, and I don't know exactly why that doesn't sort of count for this committee to be continuing to do its work, but the rules that were signed back in November of 2023 by then Chair Lant, where it said 9, but what we talked about last week in the bylaws, that talked about 5 voting members and additional non-voting members, it's not a part of this packet, and in fact, it talks about the committee putting together its own bylaws, which I think is probably not a reasonable expectation for members, unless this is how it's normally done. I would imagine that bylaws like those that were written and presented to us at the study session last week would probably be a lot better. So I pardon my confusion, could just all be stuff gears not clicking in this brain.
I'll just say that our intent is not to stop work. So we should work under the current structure until we have a change in the bylaw, until we have bylaws in this case. Okay, so don't let that hold up your work.
Okay.
I'd
like other comments on that, because staff has been telling me not to work. And in fact, I've canceled multiple meetings based on that suggestion.
I think that's just coordination, but.
I actually, I believe that even though we don't aren't following all the rules that are not even ratified by the city council yet for committees, we have a process. I can see you could argue it was flawed, but it's not against any state law. State law would be if we weren't noticing them, if we didn't have minutes, and we're doing all those things. So as long as we do those things, it's my opinion that we can go ahead and meet. And I've been saying this all along, actually, and I can understand Commissioner Adams' frustration because, yeah, I think that he was told pretty much to wait. But it looks to me like it's going to be a while. I mean, I don't know how I can't see how we can even vote on, or why we would want to vote on our policy yet when the city policy isn't even completed. So I think that what we should do is allow the committee to keep working with the understanding that hopefully in the near future that will change.
Right, so unless we get contrary opinion from our assistant city attorney, that it's just a matter of coordinating and being sure that the meetings are noticed properly and that you're doing minutes and what have you. Other than that, until we have the city, the council adopting this new ordinance that will then fall in link with, we won't be able to finish the bylaws until that's done. However, there's a number 2 item here, which we haven't gotten to, it just authorizes that we have a new Trails Committee. So it's complicated, and we're just trying to get our ducks back in a row. So don't let it hold you up. Just work with staff on sticking with the public meeting law and getting it adequate notice and that sort of thing, and make sure the staff liaisons can work with you on that. So you heard, I know you guys were conferring, but my advice, and I hope this is okay, that until we have a city ordinance.
Do you want to clarify, Rocky, or Mac?
I'll start. So the recommendation we got earlier on is that the Trails Committee, as it is currently, could still meet. The recommendation was not to make recommendations to the commission in that period, not knowing exactly what workload was there. So there's still work being done, just no recommendations. That being said.
Yeah, so as I understood the history of the Trail Committee is that it wasn't actually it was never actually formalized. So I see that it's on the agenda tonight. But then the next issue will be then who is part what are those members, and is there a process for that? And so I think the time holdup will just be as long as it takes to get, have a process going to have those members. And then as soon as that is on board, I think that the trail committee can proceed in its normal course. And then if there are updates, to have alignment with committee, council, if there are updates down the road for recommendations to align with council on committees, then we can do that. So I think the time crunch is really just however long it takes to formalize a process for appointment of the committee members. And that can be kind of as fast as the group can operate. But that was where my head was at, yeah.
I think if we just tonight move to formalize the Trails Committee, just do that. And then the bylaws will follow that. But once we formalize, then recommendations can happen. And I think that that's how we should be operating. Again, I know there's a lot of pent-up energy on this committee, and I don't see why we need to slow that down. And I think that as long as we formally say we are forming a Trails Advisory Committee, and that we, as soon as the City Council approves that process, then we will create bylaws and do these other steps. I believe that doesn't break any state law, and that's what we should do.
Yeah, I guess who's the committee? What are its members?
We have a list. There's a list of who's on it. It's a list that's been. I'm not sure if it was approved. It was either people were either appointed by the chair, or they were recommended by the chair and appointed by or approved by the commission. And everyone on that committee is in that position. Now, if it would make things easier, one option would be, as somewhat of a compromise, to just say, okay, we're going to do this, but we don't have to have the committee, we don't have to have the elected officials vote.
I have a clarifying question, and is that what I'm hearing tonight is that we have an official ad hoc committee, Trails Committee, that has been appointed. And as an ad hoc committee, do they have the authority to make a recommendation to the commission? I guess that's the question, the first question I have. And then the second is, if there is an ad hoc committee that has been appointed by the commission, then can they continue to operate until we form the official Trails Committee and go through the process of appointment for those members? And I think that's the two questions that I'm gathering from what I'm hearing.
But what I was saying is that we could do that now. We could actually make the Trails Committee official tonight. Sorry.
Which is item 2. So I just, this happened prior to my term on the commission, but I think that the practice has been, and that's what I'm going to rely on here, that this committee was formed to make recommendations to the commission. That's been the understanding, it's been the practice. So I think I'm in line with what Commissioner Lund is saying. I think we should continue to operate that way with the existing membership particularly after, if we approve item 2 here, and then we'll fine tune it as we go forward. As soon as they're done conferring. Okay, Commissioner Sepulveda and then
Yeah,
Commissioner Adams.
My concern with this is that I don't believe necessarily that the ad hoc committee was formed to be diverse and represent all parts of the city. So if they're making recommendations and most of the members were there for one particular user group, that I don't feel comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Adams.
So both clarification for Commissioner Seffinger and for Assistant City Attorney Zoran. In our packet tonight, we have a document that was, I believe, signed by Chair Lant and the City Attorney back in November of last year, where we clarified our committees, naming the Ashland Trails Advisory Committee as one of our standing committees, not an ad hoc committee. The membership is outlined in that document, including 2 community members from the hiking community, 2 community members from the mountain biking community, 2 Parks and Recreation Commissioners, 2 Forest Lands MAC members, and 1 Ashland City Council liaison, which is what the current composition of the committee is. One of the things that we have stuck in this process is one of the members of the mountain biking community wishes to step off. There's another member of the mountain biking community that would like to hold that space. I'd like to be able to move some of these things forward. There's actually a nice description of what the purpose of the committee is, again, in this document, which is policy, which I think actually makes it official as of almost a year ago, that this committee that's actually existed for 4 years does in fact exist and is a standing advisory committee. Advisory being a key word, meaning that the committee needs to be able to make recommendations, not decisions, to APRC.
Excellent point. This was a policy that Interim Director Eldridge brought to us, and we passed. So with this plus the item tonight, I think we should just continue to operate the way we're operating until we change the policy to be in line. I'm just talking to counsel and the attorney. Till we're in line, till we move to be in line with the new adopted ordinance that the city is going to be working on October, November timeframe. So we don't want to wait that long. And we adopted a policy under our understanding of adopting policies that allows for this. Thank you for clarifying, because I've been saying we didn't have it. We actually did have this committee established.
May I just interject one thing? I've looking through the G drive and at our files, both the ASAC and the RDAC committees have a document like what is in the packet tonight, this formation of a Trails Advisory Committee, but there isn't one for the Trails Advisory Committee. That's what's missing. There's but as you point out, the other document, it's just missing this and bylaws are what's missing.
Right. So the item 2, we got to get back to item 1 and just have a quick conversation on that, but we're already into item 2 here. But item 2 does that. It creates the committee. The bylaws will come. And in fact,
Do we know what happened? Because we had bylaws last week. Why weren't they part of the packet tonight?
So the instruction that I took, understood, was that it was, that I was to present just the formation, and that then to provide clarity for what we were doing tonight. And then my follow-up question when we get to item number 2 is that we're going to use those draft bylaws for the formation and the recruitment. And then once they are formed, then that's when they would review those bylaws and make any suggested edits to come back here. In regards to the proposal of utilizing the existing policy for committees and the Trails Committee that is already identified, I think we've got decisions like you made, and that the risk is that they're making recommendations to you, the commission, and the commission is the ultimate entity that's making those decisions. So as such, I believe that the current formation would be fine, because you guys ultimately would be making a decision. If a trail was to be proposed that would come here for that review before any additional work. In addition, if tomorrow there was a recommendation by that committee, there's a process as such that it would go to another committee for review prior to coming to us, so that would take some time as well. So again, we would be able to have a parallel system to go through the formation adoption, if it is adopted for formation, recruitment and appointment of those members of this now standing, if I'm using the right term, committee versus the committee that is currently there.
And I'll just say that that appointment, it falls on the chair with the consent of the commissioners, the full commission, and I would be inclined to just carry the people I have now forward. In other words, there's nobody to recruit. We have people on the committee. It would be changing, it would be if somebody drops off, then it would fall into whatever the current policy is, and maybe by then we would have adopted something consistent with the ordinance. So we can't stop working. We have to keep working. And I don't see a risk at all, because the commission makes decisions based on advice, and they're just going to advise. So I don't see a real risk here.
I agree with the core point that it's an advisory body and the decision-making is here by elected members of the public. The devil's in the details a little bit, in that if you look at the two documents that are in our packet, the document that we adopted back in November of 2023 includes 9 voting members. The current, the piece we have in front of me identifies 5 voting members and 3 additional members. The number of representatives from the hiking and mountain biking community are different, 1 each in the new proposal, or at least what we saw last week, as well as 2 ad hoc members of the community and ADA representative, if we can get one. So if things are moving forward as we talked about last week, there will have to be some shuffling. Of course, current members would have the opportunity to apply, I would think, if they haven't exceeded term limits.
Yes, that's my understanding, and I don't want to stop, and I am sensitive to what Commissioner Seffinger said, and it's something that would be temporary, in the sense that we don't want to stop operating and recomprise the commission and stop the work that's going on, but as the opportunity presents itself, we will use the DEI frame that we'll have built into the bylaws when we begin replacing people.
With the standing committee and how it was formed, I know that there's a public perception out there that this Trails Committee is just really about a bicycle path through Lithia Park. That's what a lot of the community thinks. They think that the council and some of the commissioners, that's a main focus of it. My concern with that is, if the public wants that to happen, then I think it should. But I do think that the dog walking community and the senior community is not being represented. And I don't feel comfortable with that.
I understand. And again, if there was a recommendation before we bring the committee in alignment with the new bylaws, this group can have that discussion then, okay? I need to get us back on track here, so let's return to item 1. It's a good discussion, it's just that we're getting off.
Can I give a quick reply as the chair of that
Sure.
subcommittee? We do have multiple dog walkers and multiple seniors on that subcommittee. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I just want to be sure that we're okay or not with the item in number 1, which was that paragraph I read about commissioners and councilors not being allowed to vote and not being allowed to be officers. And then I opened up the can of worms when I started talking about the composition, so we really still are on number 1. Okay. Anybody? Want to speak to that? Commissioner Lunt?
It kind of depends on whether we want to be consistent with the rest of the city on this or not. It looks to me like where the city is going is that elected officials will not be voting members. So I don't think there's nothing that's stopping us from going a different route. But again, on the other hand, there should be a good reason, and I don't really see any good reason to go a different route in this particular case. So
Well,
I'm good with that, and it affects basically every commissioner, because every commissioner is on a committee where they're currently voting. So it isn't that one commissioner that this is piling on one person. It's everyone's affected.
Right. So I'm definitely with, my position is, in general, we want to do everything the same way that the city's doing it, unless there's a very good reason not to. Just because it makes the city, whole umbrella of the city management consistent and easier for people to understand what's going on. Now, there may be times when that would be overridden by a concern that we have the special department that has this elected body in charge. So I'm not going to try to predict what that item might be, but it could happen. Okay, so we're going to wrap that discussion up. I hope that all of that helped, because that's what we were trying to do. We're trying to help clarify.
Thank you. We'll start making edits to our existing policy and look to what the final adopted ordinance will be. And then in the interim, any comments you have, please forward it to myself and our assistant city attorney.
Yeah, if anyone has comments, probably makes sense to email me, Doug, and Rocky.
Just one quick question, not about trails. It says council member, sorry. A council member would be on each committee in here? Is that really true? I mean, would a council member be on the senior advisory committee or the other committees we have?
There would be an opportunity for a liaison counselor. And I believe that's currently how it's written as well.
Okay.
Yes, the ASAC has one, and I don't know that RDAC does yet. Is it in the bylaws that there could be? Or will it be in the bylaws?
It's not in the current RDAC bylaws, but it can be.
It should be consistent inside the department, so it doesn't have to be filled, but it's up to the council whether they want to send a liaison.
I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying what I'm hearing as the chair. So what I'm hearing is that the committee can meet with its current members. It can make recommendations. It does not have decision-making authority, never did, to APRC, which is where the decision-making authority lies, with the one caveat that the elected members of the body, which would be me, Commissioner Lunt, and Councillor Hansen, would not be voting on any recommendations.
That's my understanding for where the proposed ordinance is now.
Yeah,
We're
I think it's
accepting
good to
feedback.
make that change now. I'm not voting on ASAC at all. I just recuse myself.
Have we moved to item 2?
Not yet. We're close. We were clarifying what we were just discussing because it's important operationally, and it just came up in a basically a study session format because it was an information item. Okay, I think we're done now. Number 2, form a Trails Advisory Committee. Director Houston.
My little piece of paper is not in front of me all of a sudden. All right. Maybe it's on the back of the paper.
This one is for action.
All right. In front of you is a proposed resolution to form a Trails Advisory Committee. This purpose of the Trails Advisory Committee is to make recommendations to the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commissioners on matters related to trails and to coordinate with the Park Superintendent and APRC Director on matters related to general operations and maintenance, development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion practices related to trail use. The Park Division oversees the operation and maintenance of over 53 miles of trails located on city property. Since 2018, there has been an ad hoc committee formed and operating to advise on the Trails Master Plan, and as we've talked about earlier, been forming, working continuously since then on trails-related matters. So to ensure that we're consistent with our policies and procedures and having the formation of this committee, we are looking to have this form recommended for formation. In regards to the number of attendees or members, which I think has been brought up, the bylaws and the recommendation staff is to start with is to have 5 community members, and then there'd be no limit to, but up to 2 parks commissioners, could be 2 forest lands commissioners, again from and the commission liaison, who would be ex officio and not voting members there. The formation that we'd be looking to try to recruit for would be for someone representing the bicycling community, the hiking, commuting, or pedestrian community, someone to be representing accessibility, ADA, and then the other 2 members would be ad hoc, meaning that they're not defined or focused on a specific group, which could mean dog walking, could be seniors, or they could meet other hikers or cyclists, or a multifunctional trail user to do that. The goal there is to ensure that we have a robust representation of our trail users, and for not only our native trail, but also our improved bike paths and other pathways within the system. And I'll open for any feedback or recommendations to the formation resolution.
I have a question about the committee makeup. Does it belong in this document? Or is that just something that the bylaws would handle?
The recommendation at our study session was to represent the number, but not the exact makeup, to ensure that we didn't have to update 2 documents in the future if there was changes to that number or that makeup. And so that was what we reflected here, is to not have to have another resolution to modify the makeup of the committee.
I think you have that right. And the other thing I thought that might not belong in here is the statement that there are 3 miles of trails, because that's going to change.
Good point.
I would just drop that line.
We can, if that is what is moved forward tonight, we'll make those edits and
Okay.
get that ready for you and our attorney to sign off on.
Okay, and I see you changed to equitable here. And Commissioner Lunt, you have something? And Commissioner Steffinger after that.
I'm assuming you're through with your report? Yeah. So it seems to me that this was supposed to be an action item.
Right. So
And
let's have a
it
motion.
looks to me like, as I read through this, there really isn't any, the only thing I question is the number of membership. And I understand Director Houston's attempt to keep that number small, because if you have more than 5, you're already adding 1 or 2 commissioners, you're adding 1 or 2 forest lands people, you're adding a city councilor, and that's getting up to a larger number. So although I think there's some advantage in terms of getting representation with a larger number, I get where that's coming from, and I'm willing to live with that. But that being said, it seems to me that we should just vote on this tonight. And And I think, although I do think, because we don't say who is on this, I think we really should have somebody representing more diverse users than what is currently on. So it might mean that not everyone who's on the commission or on the committee currently will move forward, but that's probably just one person. Because I think it's good to have as many people moving forward as possible who've been there, because they've done a lot of work and that continuity is important. So I would actually propose that we approve the,
It's time to make a motion, then we can continue.
isn't it time?
Yes, it is.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
I move that we approve the policy formation of Trails Advisory Committee with the one change to what's been presented by staff is that we, out of purpose, we remove the second paragraph that says Parks Division oversees operation maintenance 53 miles of trails located in city property. So that would be my motion minus that one paragraph.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Adams?
I'll second.
Okay. You want to speak more to this?
I think it's important that we are going to be changing our the composition of this committee, and so the chair is going to bring forward at least one person, and I just advocate that person is a dog walker, or someone who's interested, who has a knowledge and interest in ADA issues, but that we do get more diversity, and that's my understanding with this motion, is that we get that. But I haven't included in the motion, but I'd be open to changing it if our chair doesn't think that would work.
No, I think that as described by Director Houston, that there is a at-large person here. It will be two that we can work that operationally as it comes up. Commissioner Seffinger?
I just wanted to be sure that what the Trails Committee works on are projects that the commission is asking them to work on. And that is consistent with capital improvement goals. I guess I'm coming from a place of knowing that for many, many years, dog walkers and seniors, and most of the people that walk around here own dogs, have had to walk in the streets without any sort of bathroom facilities, any place for their dogs to get water, in traffic. And I'd like to see this, the Trails Committee consider this too. I'm not against mountain bikers. I'm trying to get my son to move here, who is a mountain biker. So I really understand that part of things. I just want to be sure that we're really looking at the needs of all of our community.
I agree, and I think that's, in this particular policy, there's sufficient flexibility to do that, and I want to keep us on task here just to discuss this policy itself, and then I'm going to have a comment about what you just said, because I am in agreement in general and for all of our advisory committees, but I'll do that at the end of the meeting on items. We can talk a little bit more about it then. So anybody else want to make a comment specifically about this document as it's written? No? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Seffinger.
Yes.
Commissioner Adams.
Yes.
Commissioner Bachmann.
Yes.
Commissioner Lant.
Yes.
All yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, which is info, City Council and APRC Operations and Culture Recommended Framework, which we discussed quite a bit last week. We discussed it on the 14th of August in a joint meeting with the commission, the council, So we're trying to, this latest version, which is not, it'll be in the council packet. We didn't have it done, we being Mayor Graham and I didn't have this ready until yesterday. So did everybody have a chance to read it? Good. So I'm not going to read the whole thing again. Now, I am going to ask Commissioner Lant to, the 3 items you gave me, I printed out and left at home. So if you have that on your computer, if you could read those. To get us started here, because this is another information item, we'll speak one at a time and I'll keep the floor under control, but we want to get a very specific, anything that you want to correct in this, will then come back to the small body, as we are now known, the 4 people in the working group, Commissioner Adams, the mayor, the council chair, and myself, and we will incorporate that and what the council deliberates on this next week. They'll be doing the same thing as what I'm doing right now. And that will take all of that from both bodies and we will put it into the final instructions for the legal team to begin to draft an ordinance. So we would like to, and if you have big changes, then I may ask you to print them out, or not print them, but type them out and send them to me in an email so I can, because my notes, if we go crazy here, my notes won't work. Okay, Commissioner Lant, the 3 items you already gave me.
Okay, the first one is on page 3. Actually, oh, thank you. First item is page 3, and it's the first sub-bullet, which is a combined joint executive session will be called by the city manager with knowledge of the APRC chair, and I'm recommending that that be changed to say, in coordination with the mayor and chair. So it would be a combined joint session will be called by the city manager in coordination with the mayor and chair.
Okay, let's do these one at a time, and I support that. Any questions or comments from either of the other commissioners?
And I'm happy to explain my thinking if that would help.
It's a wording change that has a minimal impact on the intent, but it clarifies that the city manager and the chair work together on setting up an executive session or whatever kind of a session we need to resolve the issue, rather than having it sound like it was just the city manager who was going to do it. So that's basically.
Yeah, you said the chair, but I believe it should say the chair and the mayor.
Right. Oh, the mayor, I'm sorry. Mayor, not city manager on this one. Yeah, mayor. Okay, good. That'll be one of our recommendations for the change.
Okay, on page 4, I'm sorry I'm having to hop between, on the iPad isn't real fast. On page 4, under Parks and Recreation Director will supervise Parks and Recreation Department staff in accordance with the City of Ashland HR Department policy, protocols, and procedures. The first paragraph says, City manager will work with the Parks and Recreation Director to ensure effective and efficient operations and assist with issues as they arise on and on. And I would like to see the word ensure changed to support, because ensure is actually, it's something that is really beyond, in general, beyond the ability of the city manager, because the director reports to the commissioners, not to the city manager. And definitely we want, support is important. We definitely need to include that. But if you look down the bottom of that, it even says, as will assist with issues that arise in the same way the city manager works with other department heads, with the key exception that the relationship is collaborative, not supervisory. So that actually, that end is not consistent with the word ensure. It's consistent with the word support.
You okay? You okay? Good?
Yeah.
Moving right along?
Okay. Now, I'm going to, of these three, this is the least important. It's simply more a trying to make the language a little clearer. And that is that the, where it says legal department on page 5 as a heading, I think it would make more sense to say something like city attorney hiring process and legal conflicts, because it's too generic to just say legal department. It doesn't tell you what's
Doesn't
what's
describe what's following. We'll work on that one and make that more descriptive. Okay?
And then I'll come back later to
Yeah, that's more of a-
two other issues.
Yes, let's bring that one up at the end, and that is something that it's not proposed language, it's a concept more than that. But one of them was anyway. Okay, anything else? Anybody else have any changes from what you've seen?
No.
Okay,
Fine, I mean.
then tell us what you were thinking.
Okay, two things. The first is that at our joint study session with City Council, somebody brought up the idea of including facilities in the ordinance.
In the framework.
In the framework. And as I recall, there's a lot of nodding heads, and so I expected that would have been in this draft, but it wasn't. So I'd like to at least know the thinking of why it wasn't, or maybe some language could be put in there. And I think what the example is that a number of years ago, where the Ashland Parks and Recreation was given use of the Grove, and then and did a lot of remodeling, put capital improvement money into the building, and then was the city manager at that time basically said, well, we're going to use, we're taking this back. And, that isn't likely, that was kind of, in a way, it was an unusual case, but it's also really unusual to think that the city council would disagree with the Parks Commission idea of whether or not to fire the director. I mean, that's really not likely to happen. So this is kind of the same thing. Just if we're going to be putting in these things, what ifs, then I think we should have some what if language about how facilities are handled so that Parks has its own capital improvement budget. It used it, and then it basically was unable to use what it had improved. So I think there should be some language in there to address that. And as I recall, there was a lot of support at that last meeting.
Yeah, and let me just speak to that. The thinking was, and Commissioner Adams was probably there when we were doing this particular point, I can't remember. There were the thinking that the general idea is to have the Parks Department operate as a normal department, if at all possible. And an example I might have is if two other departments in the city were needing the same fixed asset, whether it's we'll just call it a building, then it would be resolved between the department heads and the city manager, and that would be it. With us, there's the additional coordination between the director and the city manager, because again, that's a cooperative relationship and not supervisory. So we to take care of these kinds of things, which I think are basically normal business, And so I don't really want to add more detail here. We added this first bullet on page 4 under the Parks and Recreation Director will supervise parks, etc. It says there are mutual expectations of collaboration, and this is the expectations of the elected bodies, of collaboration between the city manager and the Parks and Recreation Director on critical operational considerations. If the cooperation necessary does not materialize, then a mediation of the challenge with support of the APRC chair and mayor is required. So what I would see on the building, say the Grove, is if the city manager decided that they were going to move the utility department there, which is what happened in a prior administration, that would not happen without coordination with the director under this new structure. So you wouldn't have the conflict that we ended up with here, where we were suddenly relocating our recreation staff out of there against what we would have preferred. But with this level of cooperation between this department and all the other departments in the city through the city manager, it seems to me that that would be just it could be a handshake agreement, but it probably would be a written agreement. Let's say that we were given the use of the Grove for a 5-year period. It's a written interdepartmental agreement between the city manager and the who represents all the other departments and our director. And that would allow us to do a little longer term planning, change some facilities, do what we wanted to do, knowing that we might not have it after the 5 years. So you would amortize the cost of whatever we're doing out of whatever the period is. And it wouldn't just come out of thin air that you were suddenly being relocated, which is what happened before. So that's why I don't think we need to have the language in here, because this paragraph takes care of all normal business until there is this inability for the director and the city manager to come to an agreement on how they're going to handle that particular issue, as with any other issue. So that's why we didn't put it in. Is that close?
Yeah, I do remember this discussion well, and actually I brought up the exact example of the Grove when we were talking through this. And the idea is, trying to nuance this idea a little bit of, the city of Ashland's really unique in the very existence of this body, and I think special, right?
In a good way.
And we're all part of the same city working together. And so, and we recognize in the past, and therefore the potential in the future, that there could be conflicts between this special department that is parks, that has this unique elected body governing it, and a unique director that has a working agreement that is non-supervisory with the city manager, that unique situation could create conflicts, which include but are not limited to conflicts that have happened in the past. The desire is not to relitigate past conflicts. And of course, that whole thing was messy, right? The parks director at the time and the city manager at the time pulling little bits out of code and trying to grab anybody that had a JD in the hallway to give them a blessing of their particular interpretation of the city code. That the idea is, if there's a conflict, whether it's about the Grove again or whether it's about something else, this is our process to litigate that. And that it doesn't happen in the hallways, and that our city attorneys are not grabbed in the hallways to do these things, but that it's done hopefully peacefully and in the best interest of the whole city,
Right.
including the Parks Department.
That's the reason.
I think we need to do things that are in the best interest of our citizens. We wouldn't ask the fire department to give up their building to put recreation in their fire department, nor will we do the same thing with the police department. There needs to be the same respect for the Parks and Recreation Department, because they provide vital activities to our community. So I think that this is an important issue to address in the way that you have explained. Thank you.
Right, and that's the whole point of this process, is to do that very thing, to have the two elected bodies governing the entire city in their own spheres of influence and cooperating while they're doing it, so that we come to the solutions that are best for the stakeholders.
And I love that you bring that up, Commissioner Seffinger, that it makes sense. And we don't have any statute in the city code that says the city manager can't kick the fire department out of the fire department building, because they wouldn't do that. If that happened, it would create some conflict. We'd have to figure it out. I mean, I guess actually by the bylaws, they theoretically could. They just wouldn't. And we don't necessarily need statute to say the fire department uses the fire department building, right? It's, and came up in the past. You're right, Commissioner Lott. And I think that's why we decided we needed a process to figure this out.
I'd just like to kind of walk through the process. The thing of it is, right now, that kind of thing with the current mayor, councilors, commissioners, it's not going to happen. But it did happen a few years ago because there was a very different makeup of city councilors. And it certainly could happen again. So my question is, let's say the Grove situation came up in the future. The city manager wanted to do it. The director said no. So then it goes to the chair and to the mayor. And they can't agree either because the city manager has convinced the mayor of their position, or maybe the mayor was even started. Who knows? So now I think the next step would be it would go to a joint session. Okay, it goes to a joint session, and all the councilors say, yeah, go ahead and give up the Grove, and all the commissioners say no. What happens? There's nothing in there to explain what happens. And so maybe that's the way I could be satisfied, is if there actually was some process at the end, rather than just it going to a vote and it's 6-5 and it's done, but it could be that way every time.
True enough. Part of the intent of this whole process of working together on, I'll just back up a second here. The reason this process started was the council is going through the process of removing functions from the administrative office and creating departments. One of them was, in that process, they were proposing to formally create a parks department, and with conversations with the mayor and the council president or chair, we decided the best way forward was to change the whole culture of the city so that we would work together on an ongoing basis. And sure, everything could just fall apart, and then we would be right back where we were 2 years ago when we went to the people to solve something. And we're not going to do that for a facility. So one way or another, we just have to sort it out as a management team. And I don't think we can write into the code all of the possible things that could happen. So it has to be some generic processes, in my opinion. You can't, I don't think we can take care of everything that could happen beforehand. I think we have to trust the process of reasonable people getting together and making good decisions. Mr. Adams.
I believe it was either the mayor or council person Hyatt who brought up the truth, which is that all 5 of us on this committee and all 6 of the members of city council have one boss, which is the city of Ashland. the citizens of the city of Ashland, excuse me. So, I think you have the numbers right in your scenario, Commissioner Lott, which is that there are 6 city council members, there are 5 Parks Commission. So if we are in lockstep on our 2 sides, which,
Plus a mayor.
against one another, then the Parks Commission would lose that vote. And then and that process, which we're hoping most of the time won't happen, would be a public process. And if the citizens of Ashland see that process and they say, that was ridiculous, they can send the council members packing. And if they think that we members of the commission were being unreasonable, they can send us packing. And that's what it is to be an elected representative, and especially with the engaged electorate that we have in our town that I really appreciate.
I'll mention it. When we get together in the small group, I'll mention your concern.
Thank you, but I also want to say that I learned a long time ago that the most important number on the commission is 3. And it seems to me there's three people out of 4 who have a different opinion than I do, so I'm not, I'm not taking any further than this.
Thank you. I think that's, you had one more item? You want to bring it up now, or?
When else?
This is a good time. Either now or, you think, what's next? Items from commissioners, yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm going to actually read it because the people in the audience and the people who might be watching at home can't see this. I sent this out to other commissioners earlier today, specifically, by the way, setting it up so that there would not be any communication about it. It was just for information, and they did receive it, and they told me they've had it tonight. They said they had a chance to read it, I believe. So here is what's going on. In order to distinguish Parks and Recreation from the rest of city departments and to create a brand for marketing, Ashland Park and Recreation Commission, APRC, was created as a brand name. It was rolled out over a dozen years ago as the official department/organization name. Per the city charter, Ashland Parks and Recreation has authorities and responsibilities that other city departments do not have, thus justifying the branding that denotes the organization as unique in the city organizational structure. The city charter describes elected commissioners as Park Commission. The charter further states that there's also a Recreation Commission that by definition, the same commissioners as a park, is by definition of the same commissioners as the Park Commissioners. By charter, the organization department is responsible for Parks and Recreation in the city of Ashland. Senior Services was subsequently added, not in the charter, but via the City Council and APRC agreement. The intent of the branding was that APRC would be the name of the organization and department. From the outset of the APRC branding, there's been confusion with APRC being used by the public, the media, and city officials to sometimes mean the organization and at other times to mean the elected commissioners. The current movement to solidify and codify the relationship between Ashland Parks and Recreation and the city is the ideal time to include in the ordinance an updated definition of Ashland Parks and Recreation. So my recommendation would be that going forward, Ashland Parks and Recreation Department shall be the name of the organization department. That's so APRD. APRC in both usages shall be discontinued. That would be my recommendation. APRC commissioners, park commissioners, or simply the commission shall be used to designate the 5 elected park commissioners. It should be stated in the ordinance that the park commissioners are also the recreation commissioners, and there's one department, APRD, that manages parks, recreation, and social senior services. Since this branding is ubiquitous, it will require financial and personnel resources to complete the necessary changes and will therefore take a period of time to accomplish. In keeping with the unique status of APRD and to retain a well-recognized symbol of the department, the current logo should be retained.
Rick and I discussed this earlier today, and I agree with this. There may be minor tweaks, but basically, it's a good time to clarify all of that. So that's where I'm at. We'll just go this way. Oh, Commissioner Seppinger first.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Lott's suggestions. I do think it will clarify things. It is confusing to know what you're referring to. In terms of the logo, I'm sure that you guys remember what a long time it took us to develop that logo and the care and the importance of it. And I really agree again that the logo should be kept.
I generally agree with this idea. I'm not certain that it belongs in this particular ordinance. It seems, and I might be confused about this. I tried to dig in, I had limited time today after reading this, but tried to dig into the charter. I can't find any like specific naming convention. And therefore my question was, is this just an internal decision of what we're naming ourselves? And in which case, like, it doesn't necessarily seem like a part of this. In the charter, as I was reading it, the C, the commission, refers to the elected body, and I agree that it's quite confusing that we're and I was just scratching my head with it. I looked at Rocky's last email. I said, sure enough, he has commission at the end of his email. I go, he's not on the commission. I'm on the commission. He's in the department. So I agree with everything in here from naming that it doesn't make sense to have staff who are part of a department and not an elected commission be called commission. The good news on the logo, because I looked at that too, is it just says Ashland Parks and Recreation. It doesn't say commission or
Right.
department on it, so we can hang on to it intact, I
It
believe.
says commission right down in this.
In some places it
Oh,
does.
that
Fine
little,
print, yeah.
okay, the one that I was looking at. did
But
not
that could just be
commission that.
changed.
Yeah.
Next time.
It'll
next
actually
time-
make
next
it less
print run,
busy.
yeah. And I'll just throw in here that, so you're okay with the in principle part?
I'm okay with the
Okay.
principle, I just don't know whether or not it lives here.
One of the things that Director Houston has talked to Rick and I about, I'm sorry, Vice Chair and not myself, is branding. Right? And I don't know that you were using it in this fashion, but we have well over 100 years, our predecessors have been developing a brand, and this is part of it. So I think that it's point well taken, and I think it's a parks creation ordinance we're talking about, so I think having the name in there might make sense. Yeah.
It's my old eyes that just didn't zoom in enough to be able to read commission
I never
on the
saw that, you
logo.
had to point it out to me.
I had to go way bigger in order to be able to see it.
So one thing I'd like to say is that this was a bone of contention, the issue of trying to put a wedge between the Recreation Commission and the Parks Commission. And that's sort of that's one of my thoughts behind this, is to put in ordinance that the Park Commission is over Recreation and Senior Services. And I think having that codified is worthwhile, because there is no other place in a charter or ordinance where that is done. The other thing is, the charter really is antiquated. It's got lots of problems, and it actually does use APRC in part of it. But so I just think this ordinance basically clarifies. It's like, okay, we have a city charter that's outdated, but this is the most up-to-date thing, and it said this is what the organization is. And the other thing about this is it also it makes clear a little bit more the unique status. There isn't another place like this in Oregon, and so for good or bad, and hopefully mostly for good, this is what we have, and to actually clarify that in the ordinance, I think is worthwhile.
I agree.
Is this a vote or is?
No, we're just, this is an information item, no action. We'll be bringing back as early as our first meeting in October, which is now a study session, might become a special business session. We'll be bringing back the document that's going to go to the attorney. Or we will have an opportunity to see the document. We won't necessarily approve it, but I'm going to have a resolution and support vote on it, okay? So that's still in flux, but that's the timing we're trying to work for. I think we'll end on that note. Thank you. That is, I just want to go back to the whole point of doing this process was to clarify in an ordinance the muddled charter. I'm going to stop arguing about the charter and just have an ordinance that this group in this millennium created with the council so that we have a unified government. Okay, I'm not quite done. Items from commissioners, and I've got one. I have to find this before we quit here. And that is to go back to what Commissioner Seffinger brought up, which is, I think as a body, we need to sit down and probably in a goal-setting session and develop charges for our 3 advisory committees so that it's clear what we want them to be doing. And then we welcome feedback from them on what they think they should be doing, but I think we should have in our minds as the commission what we want our advisory committees working on that fits our goal structure. So I think we take care of all 3 advisory committees at the same time. So I'm completely in agreement with.
Yeah.
We need to be a little more proactive as a commission to have these fine people that are volunteering for these 3 committees to get something and get their teeth into and get to work on that they know they're going to come up with a recommendation for us. Right. It's a two-way street. I mean, we have conversations and they say, can we do this? And we say, yes, you can do that. But we don't want to, I don't think we want our advisory commissions just freelancing, which they're probably not doing, but one of the reasons the city, I think, is interested in getting uniform procedures is some of that was happening with all those city commissions over the years, where they didn't really know what they were doing and they would come up with stuff that didn't fit the goal structure.
What I have seen when I was on the council is that there were commissions that came up with their own projects.
Right.
And it impacted capital improvement and where money went.
It also, I'm sorry, cut you off, but yeah, definitely a budgetary issue, but it also is a staff resource issue because staff is assigned to help these people and not necessarily working on what the elected body wants to have happen. So that's just items from commissioners. Anything else? Okay. That brings us to our second.
Actually, I had one question. Do we have any update on the status of the grants that we applied for the tennis courts in East Main Park? Somebody, a constituent wrote me this week and I said, I might have missed it, but I don't know.
Next week, the OPRD commission meets and we will get official notice on the status of those 2 grants.
Great. Fingers crossed. Breath held.
And I'm sure you'll let us know right away what's happening.
Yes, as soon as I know that they made a decision, we will get an email out and work with Dorlinda. I said the name wrong. Did I say it right? Yes. Sorry, names and I are so bad. On a press release or news flash.
Excellent.
Because I'm anticipating positive news.
Good. We like
Have to.
positive news. Upcoming meeting dates, RDAC, the Recreation Division Advisory Committee meeting, next meeting will be on the 19th, that's next week, in person at the Lithia Cabin at 4 p.m. The APRC study session, our study session, will be on October 2nd. That one is the one that could well change to a special business meeting, but it would be mostly information items. We may need to take action on a resolution. That's electronic unless it's a business meeting. So my staff, please, not my staff, but the staff, please reserve this room for that date in case we go to a special meeting, which in case it would be in person at 6 o'clock. Then the business meeting on the 9th is in person here at 6 o'clock on the 9th of October, the second Wednesday. And again, those meetings may shift a little bit based on our needs to get timely action taken. And that's it. So, the chair asks for unanimous consent to adjourn this meeting. Without objection, meeting adjourned. Free-flowing conversation.
We still got credit. What? Still got up on time.
Yeah, I tried to keep it to 2 hours. I knew we were going to have a conversation.
Just coming together.
You know what? I'm really glad you pointed that out. Yeah, this is.